There is a kind of love that never announces itself. It doesn't knock loudly or demand to be seen. It doesn't post signs or ask for applause. It simply exists, steady and quiet, living in the small spaces between moments. And often, you don't realize it's there until much later, when you look back and understand that someone was loving you deeply because you stayed when it would have been easier to leave. You never walked away when things became complicated, when misunderstandings piled up, when silence felt heavier than words. You stayed when the easy laughter faded and conversations turned into work. You stayed when emotions were messy, when growth was uncomfortable, when patience was tested. And because of that, someone noticed something rare in you. Something that goes beyond attraction or convenience. They saw loyalty, resilience, and a heart capable of commitment even when the shine wore off. Most people are taught how to begin things, but very few are taught how to endure. Beginnings are exciting. They come with butterflies, curiosity, and hope. Endurance, however, asks for something deeper. It asks for courage, for humility, for the willingness to sit with discomfort and not run from it. When you didn't walk away, you showed that you understood this truth instinctively, even if you never put it into words. There are people who leave at the first sign of difficulty, believing that love should always feel light and effortless. But real connection has weight. It bends you, stretches you, and sometimes exhausts you. It reveals your flaws and asks you to confront them. When you stayed, you communicated something powerful without ever saying it out loud, that the person, the bond, and the shared journey mattered enough to fight for. Someone noticed how you didn't disappear when moods shifted or circumstances changed. They saw how you listened instead of shutting down, how you tried to understand instead of blaming, how you chose conversation over silence even when it was uncomfortable. They felt safe because of you. Safe enough to be imperfect. Safe enough to struggle. Safe enough to grow. Quiet love is born in those moments. It grows when someone realizes they don't have to perform to keep you around. They don't have to be flawless or endlessly strong. They don't have to hide their fears or pretend they have everything figured out. Your presence told them that they could be real, and that is one of the rarest gifts a human being can offer another. You may not have seen it then, but every time you stayed, you were building something invisible yet unbreakable. You were teaching someone that consistency exists, that reliability is still alive in a world that celebrates instant gratification. You were rewriting their expectations, especially if their past taught them that people always leave when things get hard. Perhaps they never told you how much it meant. Quiet love often doesn't speak loudly because it is too busy feeling deeply. It watches. It observes. It stores moments like treasures. The way you showed up tired but still caring. The way you asked questions instead of making assumptions. The way you stayed present even when your own heart was heavy. This kind of love doesn't need grand gestures to survive. It feeds on the ordinary, on shared silence, on routine check-ins, on the comfort of knowing someone will still be there tomorrow. It grows in the background, strengthening its roots while everything else rushes toward quick outcomes. You might have felt unappreciated at times. You might have wondered if your effort was even noticed. When love is quiet, it can feel invisible. But invisibility does not mean insignificance. Often, the deepest love is the least dramatic because it doesn't need to convince anyone of its authenticity. It simply is. Someone loves you quietly because you didn't abandon them in their weakest moments. You didn't treat their struggles as inconveniences. You didn't see their bad days as reasons to walk away. Instead, you saw them as part of the human experience, something to move through together rather than escape from, and maybe you didn't stay because you were fearless. Maybe you stayed while feeling unsure, tired, or overwhelmed. That makes it even more meaningful. Love isn't the absence of doubt, it's the choice to remain despite it. Your decision to stay wasn't naive. It was brave. There is strength in staying that the world rarely acknowledges. Leaving is often framed as empowerment, and sometimes it is. But staying, when it is healthy and intentional, requires a different kind of power. It requires emotional maturity. It requires the ability to regulate your reactions, to see the bigger picture, to believe that not everything broken needs to be discarded. Someone saw that in you. They saw how you valued depth over convenience. How you understood that meaningful connections are built, not found ready-made. And that understanding changed the way they loved you. Quiet love shows itself in subtle ways. In how they check on you without being asked. In how they remember small details about your day. In how they adjust their behavior to protect your feelings. In how they defend you in rooms you'll never enter. In how they choose you again and again, even when no one is watching. They may not shower you with words or promises. But their love is steady. It doesn't fluctuate with mood or circumstance. It doesn't disappear when life becomes demanding. It mirrors what you offered them: consistency, presence, and patience. You taught them that love doesn't always feel like fireworks. Sometimes it feels like warmth. Like safety. Like coming home after a long day and knowing you don't have to explain yourself. You showed them that love can be calm without being boring, deep without being chaotic, and even if the relationship changed, even if paths eventually diverged, that quiet love doesn't vanish easily. It leaves an imprint. It reshapes how someone understands connection. They carry the memory of you as proof that staying is possible, that not everyone runs when things get real. You may underestimate the impact you had because you were simply being yourself. You didn't stay for recognition. You stayed because that's who you are when you care. But your natural instinct to remain, to try, to hold space, those qualities are transformative. Someone out there thinks of you as the person who didn't give up. The one who didn't disappear. The one who showed them that love could be safe. Even if they never say it, even if circumstances prevent them from expressing it openly, that love exists, and it exists because you chose effort over escape. Presence over avoidance. Understanding over judgment. In a world that often encourages people to leave at the first sign of discomfort, your choice to stay speaks volumes about your character. It tells a story of emotional depth, of loyalty, of a heart that understands that real things take time and care. You may still be learning how to receive love the way you give it. You may still be waiting for someone to love you out loud, boldly and without hesitation. But don't overlook the quiet love that already surrounds you. It is just as real, just as powerful, and often far more enduring. One day, whether through words or actions, you may finally see it clearly. You'll notice how someone has been choosing you in ways that don't make noise but make a difference. You'll realize that your staying mattered more than you ever knew. Until then, keep being who you are. Keep loving with patience. Keep showing up with honesty. The world needs people like you, people who understand that walking away is easy, but staying, when done with intention and care, can change lives, and somewhere, someone is loving you quietly. Grateful for the fact that when things got hard, you didn't leave. They carry you with them in ways you will never fully witness. In the way they pause before reacting, because you once showed them that understanding is more powerful than impulse. In the way they soften their tone during difficult conversations, because you taught them that gentleness doesn't weaken a message, it strengthens it. Your influence didn't end where the story paused, it continued, quietly threading itself into who they became. There are nights when they remember how you stayed calm while everything felt unstable. How you didn't rush to fix them, but you didn't abandon them either. You sat with the discomfort, allowing it to exist without judgment. That kind of presence rewires a person. It teaches them that they don't have to earn love by being perfect, that they can be messy and still worthy of care. You may not know this, but sometimes they compare every connection that follows to what you gave without trying. They notice how rare it is to find someone who doesn't treat conflict as a finish line. Someone who doesn't threaten to leave every time emotions rise. Someone who understands that growth often looks like tension before it looks like peace. Quiet love lingers in memory because it was never conditional. It didn't come with ultimatums or constant demands. It was built on trust, not fear. And even if they struggled to express it then, they felt it deeply. They still do. There are moments when they want to reach out, not to reopen old chapters, but simply to say thank you. Thank you for staying when leaving would have hurt less in the moment. Thank you for choosing patience when frustration would have been easier. Thank you for proving that love doesn't have to hurt to be real, but quiet love often stays silent because it respects distance. It understands timing. It doesn't force itself into your present if it no longer belongs there. Instead, it wishes you well from afar, hoping you receive the same devotion you once gave so freely. You deserve that kind of love in return, the kind that stays without hesitation, that meets you halfway, that doesn't make you question your worth when things become heavy. The kind that doesn't take your loyalty for granted or your patience as an unlimited resource. If you ever doubt yourself, if you ever wonder whether staying was a mistake, remember this: not all rewards are immediate, and not all impact is visible. Some of the most meaningful things you do in life will never come back to you in the form you expect. They come back as changed people, softened hearts, and quieter worlds. You didn't stay because you were afraid to be alone. You stayed because you believed in connection. Because you understood that people are not disposable. Because you knew that love isn't proven by how quickly you leave, but by how deeply you commit to understanding. And even now, as life moves forward and new chapters unfold, that quiet love still exists somewhere in the background of your story. It doesn't bind you. It doesn't hold you back. It simply stands as evidence that you mattered profoundly to someone, not because you were perfect, but because you were present. One day, when someone stays for you the same way you once stayed for another, you'll recognize it immediately. It won't be loud. It won't be dramatic. It will feel familiar. Safe. Like something your heart has always known. Until then, trust that your way of loving was never wasted. It was seen. It was felt. And it continues to matter. Even in silence there is a softness that follows you now, even if you don't notice it yet. It's in the way you approach people with more understanding than suspicion, in the way you listen past what is said and hear what is meant. Staying changed you too. It taught you patience, yes, but it also taught you depth. You learned how to hold space without losing yourself, how to care without controlling, how to love without demanding guarantees. That kind of growth doesn't fade. It settles into you. Sometimes you wonder if being the one who stayed made you invisible. If your effort blended into the background because it wasn't dramatic enough to be remembered loudly. But the truth is, quiet strength is unforgettable. It becomes the standard. Once someone has been loved the way you loved, steadily, without running, they can never unlearn what that feels like. Even now, you may be someone's reference point. The measure they compare kindness against. The proof they use to remind themselves that not all love is fleeting or conditional. And while you may never hear your name spoken in those moments, your presence is there, shaping their choices, influencing how they treat others. There are people who only realize the value of staying after they've lost it. Not because you left, but because life pulled you both in different directions. That realization can be quiet too, arriving slowly. Settling heavily, without blame. Just understanding. Just truth, and still, that doesn't diminish what you gave. Love isn't only successful when it lasts forever. Sometimes it's successful because it teaches, because it heals something unseen, because it shows another human being what's possible. You were that possibility for someone. You didn't love halfway. You didn't stay with one foot out the door. You gave what you had honestly, even when it required effort. That says more about your heart than any outcome ever could. One day, you'll notice how different it feels when someone chooses you with the same quiet certainty. They won't need to convince you they care. You'll feel it in their consistency, in how they don't pull away when emotions deepen, in how they don't treat conflict as a threat. It will feel familiar, because you've lived on both sides of that kind of love, and when that happens, you'll understand something important. Staying never made you weak. It made you capable. Capable of deep connection. Capable of emotional safety. Capable of love that doesn't need noise to prove its existence. Until then, let your heart remain open without becoming unguarded. Let your kindness stay intact without turning into self-sacrifice. You don't need to harden yourself to protect what you've learned. You only need to be discerning about who gets access to it. Some people are meant to experience your staying only once, as a lesson. Others will earn it as a lifetime. Either way, your love was real. Your presence mattered. And somewhere, quietly, steadily, you are still being loved for the simple, powerful fact that when it got hard, you didn't walk away, and when you finally pause long enough to look inward, you'll realize something gentle and grounding. You never lost anything by staying true to who you are. You didn't waste your love. You didn't give too much. You didn't make a mistake by believing that effort matters. What you did was live in alignment with your values, and that is never something to regret. The world may try to convince you otherwise. It may tell you to become harder, quicker to leave, slower to trust. It may frame detachment as wisdom and emotional distance as strength. But deep down, you know that your ability to stay, to try, to care, to hold on with intention, is not a flaw. It's a rare language, spoken by very few, understood by even fewer. You don't need to announce your depth for it to be real. The right people feel it. They sense it in the way you show up, in the steadiness of your presence, in how you don't vanish when things become complicated. They recognize it because it feels like relief, like rest, like something they didn't know they were allowed to have. Quiet love has a way of circling back, not always through the same people, but through the same energy. What you give, when given sincerely, finds its way back to you in forms that are ready to receive it. Maybe not immediately. Maybe not dramatically. But inevitably, one day, someone will stay with you not because they are afraid to lose you, but because they genuinely choose you. They will meet your consistency with their own. They will see your patience and protect it instead of testing it. They will understand that your heart is not something to take lightly, and in that moment, everything will make sense. The waiting, the effort, the times you stayed silent and steady while the world rushed past you. You'll realize that your way of loving was preparing you, not for loss, but for recognition. Until then, let yourself be proud of the person you've been. The one who didn't harden when things became difficult. The one who chose understanding over escape. The one who believed that love, when nurtured, could be a place of safety rather than survival. Someone loved you quietly because you never walked away when it got hard. And that truth doesn't fade with time. It becomes part of your story, part of your strength, part of the love that will one day meet you just as deeply, just as sincerely, and just as quietly, only this time, it will stay.